monthly topic. And the monthly topic of December 2020 is energy hacking. And today we will focus on strategies and techniques to increase your energy in order to stay motivated. And before we start, I would like to give you a short overview of what DueDash does. And Markus is going to share the screen with us. So what is DueDash? DueDash mission is to help startups to become investable. And what do we mean by that? We bring together founders, investors, and experts which belong to the global startup ecosystem in order to educate them on startup and fundraising processes, build their business with focus, and receive funding. Let's move to the next chart. So here on this chart, you can see what DueDash does in general, and we have a variety of offers and lots of opportunities, and majority of them are for free. We can help you to connect with local startup community. You can learn entrepreneurial knowledge through our events and digital knowledge base. And those who are in fundraising process, feel free to make a free investment readiness check and connect with investors. And you're also able to onboard your community on DueDash as a part of global startup ecosystem. And moreover, we have founder sparing rings, which are local startup groups where you can get in touch with other founders and maybe get support from them, since we all know that there are location-related challenges in each city of the world. And here in Cologne, for example, we really want to help young founders coming out of university maybe to directly get to this entrepreneurial journey and help them to succeed by providing all the resources they need in order to become successful. And so this brings us directly to the topic of today's discussion, which is energy hacking. I think you can stop sharing, Markus, your slides. So what is actually energy hacking? I think some of you really want to know what it is. And some of my friends ask me, what do you mean by energy hacking? And you all know that nowadays it is, especially during Corona time, it is very hard to stay balanced and motivated. And we have lots of stress. And in this discussion, we're going to talk about how we can overcome those challenges and how we can be mindful and more focused. And for this, we invited two fantastic speakers. These are Michelle George and Julia Zhao. And meanwhile, feel free to post your questions if you have them here in chat, and we will try to cover them one by one. Yeah, Julia and Michelle, I would like to ask you one of the most important questions nowadays. How are you? How are you two? How are you doing?
Doing very well.
And you, Michelle, is everything fine? Because in Corona time, I think this is one of the most essential questions. In our company today, we had a discussion with Michelle Obama. And the first question was, how are you? Because nowadays we don't even know. Sometimes we fail to ask the question. We talk about business stuff and everything, but this is one of the most important questions in my opinion.
Yes, absolutely. It's actually also one of my most favorite ones, because I came to learn that when you are very honest, people are also a little bit surprised because they expect that you answer very well. So I'll be honest. So today I'm definitely excited to be here, but I'm also slightly tired because it's already 6 p.m. So I think it's a very nice mix, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let me introduce Michelle and Julia to you. Julia, you are an entrepreneur and passionate community builder. And on the World Wide Web, I found such kind of information that through your desire to create a positive impact and systematic change, you lead multiple entrepreneurship organizations around the world and organize several conferences such as Kairos Europe Summit. And currently you are running a VIO NHL tech startup that revolutionizes and changes the way teams are built by measuring energy and behavior of individuals, teams, and organizations to increase engagement and productivity for better business outcomes. Can you please give us a short introduction of what you do and how you manage to be focused when you have so many projects going on?
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. That's definitely a really good question. Doing multiple things at the same time, I think Michelle can definitely second that, or a lot of the people in this call. And I think it's really about, first of all, you got to do things that you really enjoy, that give you energy, right? Talking about energy, and also having a very clear schedule and I guess way to schedule your time and to manage your time, and to combine that also with taking time for yourself. I mean, I know this is going to be a big topic, right? How can we keep our energy up? How can we keep our motivation up? But I think another important point for me is also doing things that have synergies with each other. So everything that I do, especially when it comes to community building, those are not projects that I do on a separate basis, but they all kind of feed into each other. So I know that this, project might have benefits for the other projects that I'm doing and vice versa. And that's really important for me because I really need to be able to kind of connect the dots between everything.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for a wonderful answer. And now let's move to Michelle. Michelle is a social entrepreneur, coach, and consultant with a psychology background. So you study psychology, right? In Luxembourg. And then you founded Rubik's Potential, which is a social business based in Luxembourg with a vision to empower individuals to live a self-determined life in every aspect. And as an entrepreneur, you are engaged in various startup networks and support multiple projects, and you're familiar with handling stressful situations. And you also went through turbulent times, and you know very well how it is to cope stressful situations. And can you please tell us more about it?
Yeah, I think no matter what kind of challenges you face, in case that you understand yourself, like the strengths and resources that you have, you'll most definitely be able to make it, not always on an easy way, but you'll persist. For me, what I value a lot is the network that I have. So I think especially as an entrepreneur, it's super important that you have people around you that, I mean, it's a cliche, right? They lift you up. They really, and that's a roller coaster. So at one moment, you'd definitely be down. So in that moment, it's good to have someone who says, okay, listen, I know how you work. I know you. So this and this is going on. And then you work out this together. You don't necessarily need a specific coach. Not when you're on the roller coaster of an entrepreneur. So I think that's one thing that helps a lot. And then again, can just second what Julia was saying. Make sure you follow your passion, because it's like an energy battery, and that keeps you moving even when it's very, very tough.
Thank you very much. Not long ago, Michael posted on the DueDash platform a very interesting question. How do you recharge your energy? And we found lots of answers to this question. And many people said that listening to music and staying away from laptop on weekends, or laughing while watching comedy shows or scenes, swimming, connecting with friends, as well as going for a walk, recharge their energy. And what about you, Julian and Michelle? How do you normally recharge your energy?
Great. That's a great question. I think the answers definitely go in the right direction. I would answer again by saying recharging energy through doing things that you enjoy. For example, for me, I definitely work a lot, but I would say I get energy from my work, because I enjoy working with the people and also doing the things that are required for the different projects. And so I think that's the most important thing, because if you have a job that you don't really enjoy, then that actually drains your energy, and you kind of try to balance that with other things. So I would say number one is actually always doing something you enjoy. And then otherwise, I would say trying to be as much in flow as possible. I really like that concept. And I also do meditation to recharge myself. I can be in flow through cooking, through doing a lot of different things. Even doing the laundry can be an activity of flow, of recharging, as long as I am kind of in the moment and being as present as possible. And obviously spending time with friends and family is recharging. So I try to have a good balance between work, just time for myself, and also social time, and really activities that get me into the kind of flow state.
Thank you very much. What about you, Michelle?
Some of the things I would also agree on that work for me, but not everything. So, for example, when I spend a lot of time with different people, good close friends or family, at some point for me, it's not recharging anymore, because I would say that I'm an introvert. So I get a lot of energy just being with myself. What helps me is, for example, also stillness, like really this silence. And even if it's just 2 minutes, but having no phone, having no laptop, no music, and if possible, no cars around me, no other noises, that helps me a lot. So it's what I came to realize after living in cities, and I grew up on the countryside. So at some point, I really missed this quietness. And whenever I'm now back, so I'm currently also again here, it really calms my nerves. And on the other hand, also what Julia says, for example, when I have a busy day at home and I work from home, I've never counted myself as a housewife, and I think my boyfriend would completely agree on that. But what I actually like doing is just doing the laundry, like packing it away. When I had like, okay, I do this and this at work, and then I go for laundry and house chores, because it just takes my mind away. As long as I'm not with my mind at my work, right? But really mindful at the activity itself. So I think it's also changing the activities and what you do that can totally help. But again, it's just understand who you are and what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, what about your audience? What are the way, what helps you to recharge your energy? Maybe you can post your answers here in chat. And besides, Michelle, when we talked 2 days ago, you told me a very interesting fact that it is important what kind of movies you watch. And maybe you tell us something about why it is important to pick out the right movie.
Yes. So let me start easy and then go a little bit to neuroscience. But maybe you've noticed that sometimes also depending on your mood, you have a preference for different movies. For me, it's, for example, when I'm very stressed or when I'm sick and ill, I also love watching Disney movies because they are just so soothing. You have music, it's a nice story. And behind this kid's story, there's always a lesson for life too. So that's something I really enjoy. And there was a time when I was watching more violent movies, like action movies or serious. And that's also when I started to innerly feel different. Because also from the brain part, you have mirror neurons. And these help you to feel what's on the screen, right? So that's why we get so tense when there's a horror or action movie, why you might scream saying like, oh, don't do this, why you're so stupid. Because you can kind of feel not the same and the same intensity of emotions, but you can still feel it. And in that way, I think it's everything we feed to ourselves, also movies, they impact our mood and our energy. So in that way, I think it's very important that we're conscious on what we actually watch, right? So it says something about your mood, but it can also impact how you're gonna feel and how you're gonna be throughout the day or the week.
Yeah, thank you very much. Julia, you told me that you also took some courses of Joe Dispenza. Maybe some of you heard about Joe Dispenza, and he's in my opinion, one of the best teachers in way of like training us how we can work on our mindset, right? Can you tell us a couple of words about it?
Yes, sure. So I guess I could talk about it for a really long time, but basically, Joe Dispenza is one of the teachers who really tries to convey how our mind influences our body I'm sure you've heard of the concept mind over body, and that's something that I fundamentally believe in too. So he likes to use the concept of the placebo effect, and it touches on what Michelle was saying about mirror neurons. So there are so many studies on the placebo effect, and that a lot of things actually happen without something real happening. So there are sort of, I'm not sure how exactly they're called, but surgeries where people don't get the actual surgery, but it's just a surgery where they kind of cut open something and then, they put it back without having done anything, and people still feel a fundamental difference. Or there are people who have been asked to imagine them lifting weights for a period of a couple of weeks and really just imagining it. And afterwards, their muscles actually grew by about 10 to 15%, which is insane. So this is just the effect that describes how much power our mind has over our physical lives, but even beyond that. And that is something that I sort of stumbled upon quite randomly. And that really changed my life in the sense of me approaching a lot of things in a different way. Also, when I get ill, I kind of see it in a different way. And I know, okay, it's not only feeding my body the right things or approaching it in a purely physical way, but also changing my mind, being positive, and all of that really influencing the way I feel about everything. So that's sort of the direction of where he goes. Obviously, he teaches very specific techniques. He introduces you to different types of meditations that you can use to enter a certain state where you really, even reprogram your subconscious mind to a certain extent. But that's sort of the direction and what really got me excited at the beginning.
Yeah, this is really exciting. And what I learned from Joe Dispenza is that 5 minutes before you go to bed and 5 minutes after you wake up are one of the most important, because this is the time where you can reprogram your subconscious mind. So maybe it's just like a hack for you guys. So I got a very interesting question from Sarah. Sarah asked, how could she generate any new improvement ideas while she's mostly not in the mood because of your business to do the important tasks? Do you have any answer for Sarah so that she can generate any improvement ideas and work on it?
So maybe she can answer in the chat. I'm just curious if I understood correctly. So Sarah, you're running a business and you also want to generate new ideas to move forward, while at the same time you're too busy.
She's too busy and she's not in a mood. Maybe she has some sad moments and she cannot really focus on the tasks.
Okay. So for me, and that's what we talked recently in a team building session, actually, when we got asked, like, what do you need to be at your best? And I see it as a spectrum where I work really good, right? And it's like the two ends of extreme where I don't function anymore. One is the one with boredom, when I don't have any pressure, nothing to do for a long time, and it's just like you swim around. The other one is you're super stressed, and running a business, it just happens, right? You have to do this and that. You have to put out fires. You need to find solutions. And this is the moment when it's too stressful. So I can't, for example, generate any new ideas. And it's also, normal, because your brain in that moment is on the fight or flight mode. So with all the hormones and the chemistry in your body that's happening, it just basically means that you're back to mere instincts because your survival mode is on. And when your survival mode is on, it's very tough to actually be creative. That's the safe space that you would need, the in-between, where you can find some time to sit down and just let your brain roam free. So it's also proven by studies that actually you need the stillness that I was talking about before in order for your mind to digest what happened on information and to come up with new ideas. So I also have friends who once a day go for a 1 hour walk in a forest. And that's when they have their best ideas. For some people, it might be in the bathroom taking a shower. So I know, for example, I would need a whole day in order to come up with some really amazing creative ideas. But it might mean that it's enough for you to have this routine of each evening sitting down, and each evening you have half an hour for yourself, and your brain gets used to it, and you just calm down, because you need to give yourself the space in order to get first into the mood, and then your brain can actually develop these ideas.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm going to go back to two things. So one is again the flow state, and flow actually induces creativity, or even the other way around. But there's kind of a balance. So if you're stressed, then you cannot be creative. So one thing actually that describes flow is you need to be challenged, but you cannot be challenged enough, because if you, let's say your challenge needs to be met with your skill set. So let's say I want to play the piano, but I only have 1 year of experience and I'm trying to play Rachmaninoff, then the challenge will be a lot higher than my actual skill set, and that creates stress. So I cannot be immersed in the activity enough, and that kind of allow me to be, in the moment and be as creative as I can. However, if my skill set meets the challenge that I'm facing, or if the challenge is just slightly higher than my skill set, then I can enter that flow state in a much easier way. So I would agree that it's all about finding that stillness, finding that moment where you're not stressed, but where you are, tapping into I would say a little bit of a void, and where sometimes when you're still, then the ideas just come to you. And there are also interesting studies that show that actually laughter and fun is very, very good for being creative. So I can't remember the exact example. My boyfriend actually told me about it, but they had 3 different groups, and one group was doing some reading and some writing, and one group was watching funny memes and bloopers. And the group, guess what, with the funny memes and bloopers actually performed the best afterwards, because it created so many lucky hormones, serotonin, or endorphins, and so that's kind of the opposite, right? And the other thing is you cannot have cortisol and serotonin or endorphins being produced at the same time. So you really need to make sure you're feeling good and feeling calm.
What I also heard is that if you are in a sad mood or in a low energy, what helps is just to smile for 1 minute, and after you do it, you directly feel much better. Yeah, we got a very interesting question from Nomvula, which is addressed to Michelle. Michelle, can you please talk about the importance of sleep?
Oh yeah, that's a nice question. Sleep, I think it's a very big topic, right? And there's a reason why it's also used to give pain to people. Because actually, if you go without 1 night of sleep, your body reacts the same as if you're a drunk person. If you go for, let's say, a week without sleep, you most probably will die, right? That's why it's used as a torture method, because your brain needs this time to recover. It's so much information that flows to us throughout the whole day that in that moment, the brain really is still working, even though we're sleeping. So also, again, studies, yes, but they show that normally between 6 to 8 hours is what's best for you to perform also best throughout the day. There are, of course, some people who can live with less sleep. I call them also the lucky ones if they have this need of only 5 hours of sleep, but then they are entrepreneurs because, okay, they have some more time throughout the day. But I would say you need at least 4.5 hours. There's like 3 cycles of sleep in order for your brain to have a minimum. Then also on the other end, if you have too much sleep, more than 11 hours, again, you feel super tired and dizzy the whole day. So also their studies have shown if you have too much sleep, you also won't function anymore very well. So it's find your space that works well for you. And then also, you have so many other things, right? Insomnia can also be a sign of how stressed you basically are, or if there's anything else that's not going well. So just ask these kind of people if you've ever met someone. That's one of their biggest pain points in life. The moment when you know you're tired, but you can't really sleep. And I guess Julia also has to say a lot on these things. So just also giving the word over.
No, completely agree. I also agree. Lucky people who need only 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep. But I think we're going to mention so many studies tonight. Anyways, um, there are a lot of experiments, right, on people learning something, and even if they sleep just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or have kind of like one cycle of sleep, the internalization of that information is so much higher. So that's why, as a student, sometimes I would study something and I would actually take a nap because I know that the retention of information was a lot higher. So I think sleep is important for everything in terms of health, right? Regeneration, in terms of learning, education, and being productive. And I think that for me, at least, whenever I feel that my body isn't fully functioning, I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to sleep longer. It's what my body needs. And I'm going to end with a really funny note from my grandmother. She went through World War II and she went through the Cultural Revolution. And she was always, I think, the most positive person I knew. And she said, whenever you have a problem, just sleep, because then you won't forget it. Like, then you will forget about everything. So she would always say, sleep is the #1 solution to all problems.
Yeah, I can second on that. Not necessarily for myself, but also, for example, my boyfriend, he also loves to sleep when there's something coming up. And then I think for myself, though, what I can also recommend is power naps throughout the day, right? You also have this span of 15 to 45 minutes of sleep, which can be very helpful. So I know that I need 5 minutes to fall asleep, so I put my alarm on 15 minutes max. And that helps me a lot to get to the day when I know, okay, there's a lot more going on and I have to start very early in the morning, or I just feel tired. So it's okay. I mean, people in Mexico and Spain, they know this, they do this more often. I think we should do this also here in Germany, even though it's not so common, right? If you would take a nap in your office around noon, people would look at you very weird. But I can just recommend it if you feel like it.
Yeah, unfortunately, in Germany or in European countries, it seems weird to sleep. But when I did my internship in Malaysia, I found, or when I was in Taiwan, I found it very nice that people have special rooms where the employees can take a rest and have a nap. And this is like nothing wrong in Asian countries, and I really love this concept. Meanwhile, we got a question from Carl Anthony. Carl Anthony would like to ask you two, what would you recommend to reset his head for intensive learning? He says that doing day-to-day business as an entrepreneur often confronts him with topics or sectors where he needs a deep dive and learn. So what can you recommend him?
Sure, I'll go ahead. I'm sure you've heard of the concept deep work from Cal Newport, and that's what I'm going to reference here. I would definitely consciously schedule in deep work phases if you need to do these kind of deep dives where I assume that you need to do a lot of focus work. And deep work really means non-distractive work. So you just focus on one thing, say it's writing an article or programming, and you don't do anything else. And it's really important to remove any distractions, because it takes at least 20 to 25 minutes, even after you look at one message from your phone, to get into that focus phase again. So I would say just consciously scheduling that in. And something you can say is maybe you do that at the same time every week, and you let all of your colleagues know, I'm just not available then. And if you respond 3 hours later, nobody is going to notice that at the end of the day. So for me, it's also, I do emails ideally 3 times a day. And some, like, in very, very rare cases, it's going to be more urgent. And if it's really urgent, people are just going to call you up. So that's my take on it.
Okay.
Yeah. I second that. So definitely prepare yourself, prepare your environment. So if you make it a routine, as Julia said, you have it the same day each week. You can also start with, okay, my brain also needs to understand this is what's happening. So you can say, okay, I put on this special kind of glasses. I use this special cup when I go for deep work. then you can also check double that your phone's turned on silent, all notifications are turned off. You only open the one tab that you really need. And then you have all materials ready that you need. And also especially have your cup of tea or glass of water so that you can hydrate in between. And then start just working, right? And I mean, the most difficult part is normally the first step, especially when you know you have to focus and sit down. And then it's also a big task. But just start with the first thing. And otherwise, what I can also recommend is the Pomodoro technique. You probably know it. So it's basically, right, you have these sequences of working for 25 minutes. And it works. I mean, I use it myself, not throughout the whole day, but let's say 4 times 25 minutes. After that, my brain's really mush and I need to go to something different, something more creative or relaxing. But when you only have this short amount of time, it normally helps a lot. Right. So I hope this is the answer you're looking for.
Thank you very much.
I just had 2 things that popped in my mind. And one thing is starting with it right in the first thing in the morning without first of all, I hope not a lot of people are looking at their phones first thing in the morning. I think we all tend to do it, but it's not the best habit to have. But that already, if you start with a deep work phase first thing in the morning, then it's a lot easier to get into it because usually mornings are also the time when you're most focused. And if you still have a hard time with distractions, there are so many tools out there that you can install on your computers to enable you to, or to allow you to not access certain web pages, say YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and even on your phone. So I've tried a couple of them, like Cold Turkey or Freedom, and they work. Kind of go around it, then you have to uninstall, and it takes a lot of effort. So just as a recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. What I like to do is that I like to take short breaks, and I often take my cup of tea or coffee and I just breathe it in, the smell of it, and it really helps me to be focused during the next hours. Yeah, and because if we are mindful, it helps us to be also more productive and focused. And meanwhile, we got a question from Philip. Philip, do you guys have a morning routine? Would you share your routines with us? So Julia, you said that for you it's important not to stuck to your phone, to take time for yourself. What about you, Michelle? What is your morning routine?
As my days look very different, I think one thing that's most important for me is first thing in the morning to cook some hot water so I can have my cup of tea. Either it's in a cup or I have it in my little bottle that I carry around. And then otherwise, in case that I'm home, I need to feed my cats. So that's the second part. So also keeps me off work because they are really, really intense when they want to have their food. So it's not like I can tell them, okay, I'm going to feed you in an hour. They want to have it that moment, right? Other than that, it depends a lot. I had a time when I was sitting down, reading in the morning, journaling. I had a time when I was really going to sports. So right now, unfortunately, all I can say for my usual morning routine really is my cup of tea. And on other days, also my first motivating call. So I schedule calls in the morning with a person that gives me energy so that I have a great start into the day. And these are basically the things that I do at the moment.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, for me, my morning routine is like golden. I really need it. Some people are more like nighttime routine, but I'm more like morning routine. And so for me, let's say the ideal morning routine doesn't happen every single day, is waking up, meditating about 30 minutes, and then I always do celery juice. Maybe some of you guys know about it, but I've been doing it for, I think, 3 years now, with very little exceptions. So that's like my thing. And then I I actually have a kind of morning reflection thing I go through. So I have a Notion board, right? I have certain questions I ask myself, like, kind of gratitude type of journal thing. What am I thankful for? What is the one thing I need to get done today? What's my intention? And look at a couple of articles that I want to read, and in the ideal case, also write a little bit. And I think that's really it. And then starting to schedule my day. So I'm a huge planner, and I need to have the whole day scheduled in advance, because again, doing so many different things at the same time kind of requires that overview. So that's my morning routine.
Thank you. And Michael is interested in the following topic. How do you know, as entrepreneurs, when to take breaks and to take a rest? This is the classical issue of working so long until your productivity drops so much. So how do you know when to take breaks and take a rest?
Okay, then I go first on this one. I think awareness, self-awareness, being mindful about yourself is really helpful here, because yes, you can work until you drop, but you all know, I guess, the analogy of having an axe and going into the forest and chopping down a tree. At some point, it's better to just sharpen the axe and go down at the tree instead of having 9 hours just hacking at it and nothing's happening. And it's also, now coming with the term biorhythms. So if you understand how you work best, it also helps you to understand the productivity and also understands when you're not at your best anymore. So these two things, self-awareness and biorhythm, because that helps you in that moment to say, okay, I really need this break. Of course you can, and as an entrepreneur, I've been there myself, right? So you can train yourself and push over your boundaries, widen them even more and more and more, until you really can go 4 hours a day and you still feel okay and you can do even more. But it's not healthy, right? It's not where you have creative ideas. It's not at some point you don't feel happy anymore. So really having this self-awareness and just checking throughout the day, here and there, how you're feeling, and then saying, oh, okay, right now I don't feel so good. So maybe it's time for a nap. Yes, I have this urgent deadline coming up, but hey, 5 minutes of a nap or pushing through. And mostly it makes more sense to take this 5 or 10 minutes because you're going to be much more productive. So especially as an entrepreneur, I know this feeling that you have this urge and pressure need. It needs to get done right now. But you actually know it better. So here I would say trust yourself, allow yourself the space.
Yeah, I completely agree with Michelle on self-awareness. I think it's the first step to everything, really. And it's being aware of, right, when you feel a dip in energy. For me, when I notice it, I usually try to take a small break. I actually always exercise. So after just a 10-minute, 15-minute workout, I feel a lot of energy again. So that's kind of my secret trick, or going for a super short walk outside or taking a cold shower, even if it's in the middle of the day, to keep me sustained towards the evening. Or sometimes I just do something that's non-work related, like cooking a meal or doing laundry for that matter. And actually being at View, because we work with energy, right? So we look at what's the energy in teams. Does that, say anything about performance, about productivity, about business outcomes? And through doing that, I actually started observing my own energy more. So Michelle, I didn't tell you, but I started actually doing that 3 times a day myself. So measuring morning, afternoon and evening, what's my energy level, and looking at, are there any correlations? Is it a correlation between, for example, the amount of sleep and the energy level, or is it a potential correlation between the food I eat that day, or the things that happen, the calls that I take? And I think it's, that, but I went off on a tangent, so I think I made my point.
Really nice. Yeah, just on that one, I think doing something different is really useful. And as we all know, standing up when you're normally sitting a lot in front of your PC is also recommended. So sometimes I'll just love to, when nobody's there and nobody's looking, put on some silly music or my favorite song and just shake it all out for some minutes, or just sing. I yeah, I feel sorry for my neighbors in that moment sometimes, because I think their sleeping room is right next to my office. But it helps also, right? Just release this energy, the stress, and free your mind, and at the same time recharge.
Thank you very much. And I have a questions for your audience. How do you know when to take breaks and take a rest? Just keeping you a bit busy, please post here in chat your answers. I'm really curious of what is your way to take break and to finding out when to take break and take a rest. Meanwhile, I got another question from Marcus. Marcus wants to know, is there a recommendation on how much time you should get your head off work before actually going to sleep to have a resting sleep? So coming back to the question about sleep again, seems like this topic of how much sleep you need to get is getting really important.
Julia, do you want to go first? Shall I go?
Go ahead, Michelle.
Okay. So I think it's not just head of work, but it's also the light, the blue light that we have. I think we all are aware of this. And also, I mean, okay, there are two things. If you have a physical job, of course, you should, if you can, stop 3-4 hours before, so your body also understands that right now you're going to tune down. That's also why you should, in the best case, not necessarily go 1 hour before you go to bed, go for a walk, because that's keeping your body active, and it gives the sign that, oh, now it's daytime, now something's happening, so I need to stay alert. So what I value more actually than my morning routine is my evening routine, where I really can calm down, right? So yes, it's at some point also sitting at the couch with my cup of tea again, but I have a different cup of tea at the evening than in the morning. Morning's definitely something like green tea, white tea, something really tea, that wakes you up, and then I have tea infusions like herbs and fruits that calm me down. But I would say also here, for giving your heart space, at least 2 hours. That's what I need. It depends. I also have friends that need 4 to 6 hours. But for me personally, works best 2 hours, where I don't think of anything work-related, but also not anything stress-related. Because also with my boyfriend, we sometimes do PlayStation games, and there's also some more active ones. And if I do this and then until the last minute before I go to bed, I literally can't sleep. First, because I was watching the TV, but second, because I'm still like hyper active and saying, oh, I still need. So it's really just calming down and having a routine. It depends on you. So for me, it's, as I said, 2 hours with tea, and then also writing a bit, reflecting on the day, being grateful, and I'm actually going in to bed and sleep.
Really cool. I have to admit, my morning routine is definitely stronger than my evening routine. So I don't always stick to it. I would also say definitely, I mean, about an hour at least would be good. And I completely agree on the blue light. Again, mentioning studies here, there are enough studies that show that not even blue light, but any type of light, if you have that about an hour around an hour before you go to bed, it drastically reduces the quality of sleep. And so I'm actually using a tool. It's called f.lux, and you can just download it, and it just removes all the blue light gradually from your screen. And so at the end, you kind of look at a completely red computer, but it really helps because if you work late, then I definitely recommend that. And doing something completely different, like whether it's reading a book or just watching something, or just like Michelle said, just drinking a cup of tea, but something unrelated to work would be good.
Okay, thank you for your answers. Now I would like to ask you another question. Since most of our audience, startup builders, we have startup community, the question is, how do you stay motivated in business when you have never done something before and the results won't show up until down the road? How can you stay motivated in this case? Michelle, you go first.
Yes, okay. I would say go for your small achievements, small successes. right? Set you not just the big milestones where something big is happening, like having the first customer, having the first investor of 500,000, but really go for the small things that keeps you going. Because unfortunately in our society, we don't always celebrate the small successes. And you can see it already in high school when you have an assignment and then you're done and you just disappear because you don't like talking in front of someone. But actually it's an achievement, right? No matter if it's that you sign a paper, that you do some administrative work that you don't like, or that you had a great call with someone. So at the end of the day, what helps me a lot is just also keeping track of the small successes. So I think just last month, I took a whole block. I wrote down everything that I've done with my business so far, all the things that went successful, but also all the things that didn't go successful. And then I had a look and I was surprised because there were a lot more things that went successful than I actually expected or had in my memory. And that's just what happens normally from a human perspective, because our brain is focusing on the errors we do, on the non-achievements, because we can learn from them. Because pre time, whenever you did a mistake and you continue to do it, it might mean that for you. So that's still from the evolutional point. So we need to train our minds to look on the positive things, on the small successes. And that helps you to keep the motivation up, to keep going until the big one comes, basically.
Yeah, I think Michelle said it very well. I would definitely second all of that. I notice we're very similar in a lot of our opinions. So yeah, definitely celebrating the small wins. I think what I try to do is because, okay, first of all, it's completely okay to feel that way. I think everyone feels that way. And even the most successful founders, it's like a roller coaster all the time. Like I was recently just speaking to someone who now runs a unicorn business, and he's like, and the question was like, well, how often do you feel that crashing against the wall feeling is like every week? And it doesn't mean whether you're a small, just an early stage founder or a mature founder, you always will go through that roller coaster. And I think the most important thing for me is to detach myself from my work. So saying that my worth or my identity is not connected to my work. And it's basically, if my work goes well, I'm happy. But if it doesn't go well, I'm still happy, because me as my person, I'm always, I can always stand on my own feet, and my value isn't derived of anything. And it's I think it's a hard thing to do, but just reminding oneself every single day about that and practicing that kind of attitude really helps, at least helped me a lot compared to when I was more attached in the past.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Today, I was also talking to my business coach, and my business coach always tells me, try to figure out what you say to yourself. For example, you shouldn't say, oh, I must do this work. I must complete this work. You should say, I would love to complete this work. So this is the way you program your mind. And if you tell some nice words to yourself, it is easy for you to focus to finish the task, and your brain needs to have a feeling that you love doing it. And if you have this feeling, you can really finish the task, complete them much faster than you normally do. Right. Okay. Another question, again, to sleep. So I really would like to address this question because Attila Ostuk wants to know, telling us that when he goes to sleep, he starts doing something which is quite boring for him, and he can sleep quickly. But is it a bad way of going to sleep? Does it affect the sleep quality of Attila?
My first question is, Attila, do you feel rested when you wake up?
Actually, anyway, how I sleep, when I wake up, because of the heaviness on my shoulder, I always feel tired. I mean, in the mornings, just after I wake up, the things that I should do, responsibilities that I should do, is making me weak again. Not weak, but tired again, just in the morning. So another thing that I cannot sleep in the night easily. That's why I just found that I'm playing word puzzle with the handy telephone, and this is the best way to make me sleep. But when I wake up, as I said, I don't feel energetic. No energy on me, not so much energy on me. And I want to know, is it because of the challenges that I should face, or is it because of the way that I went to sleep? But I don't know, I have no idea. Do you understand what I mean? I mean, just to make me sleep quick, I am doing boring things to make me sleep. But I'm sleeping like this. And when I wake up, I don't know, somehow I feel not energetic. And this is, I don't know if it is because of the challenges that I'm facing, or is it because of the way that I go to sleep?
I think I would like to ask the same question Julia asked, but in a different context. How do you feel when you wake up, when you don't do this boring thing? Do you feel any different, or is it still the same feeling when you wake up? Because that could give you a hint if it's connected to the activity you do before sleep or not.
Actually, nowadays I'm not sleeping without this. I'm playing some boring games which bores me, and then I'm sleeping. Otherwise, I cannot sleep because in the sleeping time. Well, I should say that I have too much responsibility because of the entrepreneurship I'm doing now. I have too much responsibility on me. When I'm thinking of them, I cannot sleep. To make myself sleep and forget them, I'm playing something. But when I wake up in the morning, I feel energetic as physically. But just after a while, let's say in 15 minutes or half an hour, because of my day is not organized, because of rush of the works, I feel myself confused again.
Yeah, I can say so. My answer on that would be it's not necessarily the boring task itself that impacts your sleep quality, because if you really do a boring task, that means you're calming down because you're bored. But when you do something that keeps your brain active, like for example doing these riddles, that means you keep your brain active in order to distract yourself from the challenges you face as an entrepreneur. And in that moment, of course, yes, you can sleep because you're distracted, but you still have your brain active. It's not calming down. So your brain is still on high alert when you fall asleep. So obviously in that way, it's impacting your sleep, right? Because sleeping on high alert also means you don't go to the really deep cycles, because your body needs to be, oh my God, if something's happening, I need to be awake and have a fight or flight mode. So my recommendation here would be work on what impacts you, what stresses you out as an entrepreneur. Because insomnia in that way, as you would describe it, is definitely something that you have too much on your mind, too much stress throughout the day. And if you solve that one, then also your sleep would be fine. So on an emotional basis, what I came to experience is basically, yes, when you feel asleep, when you're angry, that definitely also impacts your sleep, but not necessarily when you're bored. When you're bored and you fall asleep, you can still wake up completely fine. So I would link this rather back to this high alert in your brain activity right before you fall asleep.
I see. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dila, what I can say is that I have the same problem. For me, it is very difficult to fall asleep. And what I do is, instead of reading something boring or playing with my phone, what I do is that I switch everything off and I go to bed and I meditate. I just focus on my breath, and it really helps me to fall asleep, because my brain comes down, my body comes down, and in like 3-4 minutes, I'm already falling asleep. Maybe you should try working on it. Meanwhile, we got a wonderful question. I think this is the last question for today. The last question for today's session from Philip. I really love your question. Philip wants to know how you, Michelle and Julia, started your journey on creating organizations that focus on improving people's lives. What was your initial spark? What were your first ideas that you tested, implemented? And what's your vision for your project? This is a huge question. So maybe, Julia, you'll start with it.
Yeah, not only a huge question, but multiple huge questions. So I'll try to go in on, okay, so how did you start your journey on creating organizations that focus on improving people's lives? Let me pick one that directly is about impact creation, which is, I'm going to say one, okay, let me make two examples. So I'm going to say for Vue, the HR tech startup, it was actually the story was that I had two co-founders before, and we had another venture in the HR tech space. And then we met the founder of Vue, who's already been in that space for 15 to 20 years, and saw that the whole human resources space is, amongst all the other industries, is still not really, hasn't really changed a lot. It hasn't been disrupted so far. And especially when we look at millennials and Gen Z, we all crave for, work that gives us purpose, that gives us energy. And all of us want to, at least in this call, I assume, want to become founders or are founders or want to do our own thing. And that the future of work needs to adapt to these new changes, and that we go away from sort of hierarchical structures a lot more, and that we look at how can we really, feed this desire of especially young people wanting to have a purpose and to create impact, and hence us building this venture that really looks at people, every single person having an opportunity, having a role, and no matter who you are, there's always a fitting role for you. And we really want to equalize that field. And the other organization, I think that also really got me into this impact world is the Kairos Society, which right now is a global entrepreneurship organization, one of the biggest in Europe, focusing on young entrepreneurs who tackle some of the world's biggest problems. And through that society, I got to meet incredible founders who, with 15, 16, started building ventures that, one person created a bra that would detect breast cancer, or another one built a hydrogen company that really tackles how we approach green energy and all of these things. And I realized, if we don't make a change, then who does, right? We look at the Sustainable Development Goals, and if we want to achieve them by 2030, then we really have to act. And we are the generation and the generation after us that is going to be responsible for creating that change and for setting an example. So I think that's really, these are some of the sparks, but I'm going to hand over to Michelle because I'm sure she has a lot to say as well.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it super short. Also, I'm gonna right now put my contacts for LinkedIn and so in the chat in case you have any more questions. So very happy to answer them too. To answer this question though, I was very lucky that my first work was actually with an NGO on workshops for young people in difficult situations to foster their potential, to support them in becoming what they could be. And after that experience, I went on an amazing journey of social entrepreneurship. And I had already some workshops that were tested, some ideas. I could see the impact it can have on someone's life. And that's what I had in my mind, even if it's just an impact for one person at a time, it will have a ripple effect at some point, right? Because I firmly believe if you're at a good place, that also means that you have values that will support others, no matter what. So on that way, it was just like this vision, okay, helping people one after the other, as many as I can. So it started with one person, then it became more and more people. And now it's like being in this network, reaching out to other entrepreneurs, helping them also to develop this. And so it has this ripple effect. And that's how I, same as with Julia, how I also see that we change the world in also achieving these different goals, having an impact on the world. My personal vision basically for my projects, I say, would be that I can implement them in schools at some point, in high schools and universities, but also in companies, because they are adjustable on the different target groups, as we are all humans. And this is where we start. And in that way, supporting everyone to be at their best, to feel comfortable with themselves, and to also live a self-determined life. Did I miss anything of that part of the question? Yeah, well, that's the vision and how it basically started. I don't want to overrun too much, but as I said, feel free to otherwise reach out, and I'm very happy to answer any other question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Michelle and Julia, for this session. And thank you very much for you guys for joining the session, for asking your questions. I think today we learned lots of information about energy hacking, how to stay motivated and focused, and how to be calmer and at peace with yourself. And for those who have more questions, as Julia and Michelle said, feel free to ask them. And besides, don't forget to join our DueDash community to get regular information on events, startup knowledge, support on your entrepreneurial journey, and more. And here I would like to close the session. And once again, thank you very much. And I wish you a wonderful evening or wonderful day. I don't know on which part of the world you are now, or maybe good night. And don't forget to be mindful and present. And as one of my meditation teachers told me, everything is anicca. It means everything is impermanent. Yeah, and one day maybe we feel stressed. We need to understand that tomorrow it's going to be a better day. So if we keep this in mind, everything's going to be better. Bye, guys. Thank you.